Yes, I live in District 3, and District 3 is all of the schools north of Forest Hill, a very large group of schools in our community. The issues facing District 3, I think that in District 3 our children are getting a good education, but they're not getting a great education. And if you look at the test scores, the Iowa Test of Basic Skills, you look at the ISAT, our state tests, the children are falling, the majority are falling up to the 75th quartile, the third quartile, 75%. But they really deserve to be in the fourth quartile. That means between 75 and 100% achievement. So I say that we need to add enrichment and school choice. We need to do a better job of giving our teachers resources and the training that they need and opportunities. We need to look at programs that are extended day, extended year programs. The Edison schools, which we're fortunate enough to have a primary school and a middle school soon to be this year for Edison in both the north end of the school and the south end. But let me tell you that when you're on the school board, you work for the entire community, all of the districts. And if you live north of Forest Hill, you're getting a good education. If you live south of Forest Hill, you have Ting, Whittier, and Kingman, whose children are in the 50 percentile. 50% of the children or more are achieving. In the other 12 schools, they're not. So we have a major problem. We need to address it, and we need to work aggressively. So as a board member, I care a great deal about the 3rd district, but I care also about the entire school district.
Thank you. Aaron?
I think that, as I pointed out in my opening, that student achievement is the key here, and I think we all agree to that, and that's why the public school system is set up. But I think that the problems plaguing the district are the same in the south end as in the north end and district-wide. The way in which it is being dealt with, the way in which parents are dealing with it is different. Parents are unhappy with programs that are being offered. Parents are unhappy with an unresponsive school board. Parents are unhappy with the questions that they are getting from current administrators. And so, unfortunately, individuals in the southern half of the city are unable to do much about it other than voice their concerns at the school board meeting, voice their concerns to the administration, and basically hope that their elected representatives will do something for them. Individuals in the northern half have taken a different approach, and that's why we've seen a decreased enrollment in many of these schools. Students opting for parochial and other private institutions. That's why we've seen growth in schools such as St. Vincent's and Peoria Academy, private institutions that. And I think that the issue needs to be, how do we keep these students in the district? How do we satisfy our quote-unquote customers, which are our students and our parents and our teachers? And I think that if we can address that, we can truly be successful in the school district. And especially, we get our revenue from property taxes. But another great portion of our revenue comes from a per-student basis. We get approximately $4,800 per student that is in the district. And so it's vitally important that we keep the students that are in the district, that we satisfy their needs, and that so as to keep their revenue and as to basically satisfy what the district is there for, and that is to offer a quality education. So I think the problem is the same throughout the district, and that is addressing the main 3 concerns, student achievement and the program development, and listening to the constituents and acting on what they would suggest to improve the district. So that's what I would like to do as your board member.
Thank you very much. Second question, we'll start with Sam. A recent study recommended the closing and consolidation of several schools in District 150. What are your views regarding this recommendation in terms of the consolidation and or closing of some of our schools? Do you have any feelings regarding that recommendation?
I believe that there's 2 things we got to look at, and that is, one, it may be economically advantage to closing or consolidating schools, but then what is the social cost of closing down some of these schools? Now, economically, yes, we can save millions of dollars or thousands or millions of dollars, and we can put kids on the other side of the school and we can cram the classes. I think the average size for a learning classroom should be less than 20. In some of our schools right now, we have 24 students. I think when we consolidate them, you're going to increase the classroom size. And if you're talking about providing a quality education, I don't think that's going to be the answer to a quality education when you have a room that's overcrowded. And how's the teacher going to be able to teach these students if there's so many of them in the classroom? Now, socially, I think that it presents a greater problem because I think in the beginning, the schools were considered neighborhood schools. Every neighborhood had their schools that they were somehow connected with. I think when you separate a school from a neighborhood, you also separate that child's family, and the parent involvement. And is that really what we want? I think in the second district, what we want is more parent involvement. We want the child to feel like he belongs to that school. I don't think sending a child across town an hour in the morning and an hour in the evening is going to make that child feel like he has something. I don't think that parent's going to feel like that's her child's school or that parent matters. So I think the challenge is going to be, how can we do something that's going to be economical, but yet, something that's going to be sociable? And how do we bring them together? Because I do believe that all parents want the same thing for their child, and that is a quality education. And I believe that's what we're here for.
Thank you. Gary?
Yeah. Well, first, that is a consultants look at how we should do our schools. We pay them to come in and take a good look and see what would work best educationally and financially for our district, and to give us kind of a peek into the future. As we look at it, there's no decisions been made, no decisions will be made without the input from the community, from teachers, from every aspect of our community. There will be no movement in that sense. I know the question has been asked, which high school are we closing? And everybody representing their own high schools asked, it's going to be mine, and surely you'll pick mine. And I'm saying to them, no, it won't be based on that. And of course, the number 3,900 has to be reached in high school before we even consider it. Even then, we're not bound by a consultant's recommendation. This is going to be have to be done on a local level. This is only a guide. So where we will be in the next couple of 2 or 3 years depends on how well we can keep students. It will depend on what the feeling of the community is and what their input finally decides. It won't be decided by a board or by an administration. It will only be recommendations. So I don't worry about that right now. We got at least 2 or 3 years before we get to that point.
Thank you. Rhonda?
Yes, the building feasibility study, we actually hired this consulting firm 3 years ago, and it had been 12 years since we looked at our building study. We need to look at our buildings. We always need to be aware of our buildings, their current condition, and the future. So we're doing that, and I guess like Gary said, there is no urgency here, and I guess I really want the community to kind of rest at ease about that we're not rushing to close a building. And from the safe school information that we have, the smaller the school, the safer the school. So I'm very interested in what closing a high school means, and I personally as a board member don't have all the information yet. The information I'm looking for is not just the number of students, but what is the efficiency and how much are we going to save. And maybe 4 small high schools is what we do need after all. So I'm going to be looking at those questions being answered, as well as the I want input, and I think we need a team, we need teachers, we need parents, we need the community, we need town hall meetings, and so everyone's informed so we can make the best decision possible.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think there were 2 basic suggestions made by this organization that evaluated the district, and that was pertaining to the high school and then pertaining to the restructuring of the infrastructure of the district. That's where the $60 million supposed estimated cost for doing that. To address the first, and that is closing a school, I think that we need to be realistic. The facts are, over the past 20 years, our enrollment has dropped consecutively every year. To suggest that it's not going to for the next 10 or 20 years, I think we'd be fooling ourselves. I want to help to try and curve that. I think that we can maybe stop some of the flight, if not start to gain some students. But I think that if we continue in the path we're down now, closing the school will be inevitable, and it will happen. I think that, as mentioned by some of the other candidates, I think that we need to be careful as to cram students into schools. I think that we all have the best interest of the student in mind, and I think that's not going to happen. But at the same time, the 3,900 mark has been mentioned as a good number. I think we need to evaluate that and see if that is the correct number we want to go with. But at that point, then I think we need to evaluate it. But at this point, we're not there. At this point, we don't need to close a school. But I think we need to keep it in mind and evaluate that decision. And I think the decision, certainly if I'm a board member, will be based upon what the best interest of the student is, and not for political reasons or who's got the loudest crowd. I think that we need to look at which institution will provide a better environment for the students' learning. As far as the $60 million restructuring of the district pertaining to a lot of basically middle school, elementary schools, this consists of adding on classrooms and demolishing or closing off part of some schools so that we can offer a K through 6 a K through 5 and a 6 through 8 primary and elementary schools. And I think that what we need to keep in mind is this going to really do anything to improve student achievement? Is this really going to do anything to improve our test scores and to improve the overall performance of students in this district? And I think that as a recent student, I can tell you firsthand that it's not the building that you're in. Buildings don't teach. Teachers teach. And I think we have to keep that in mind. Because if we look at, for example, the southern half of the city and we say, who's got improved test scores? Who's making vast improvements in their curriculum? We would say Harrison. They have done very well, as some of the board members have mentioned this evening. But if we ask the same question of who has got the oldest school, we would again have to say Harrison. So I think that age of the building, the environment of the building, and the overall achievement is not parallel. But I think at the same time, obviously, we don't want to have leaky roofs. We don't want to have a poor environment to learn in. But at the same time, we need to keep in mind what is it that causes a student to learn, and that is certainly the teachers. And we need to work, maybe that $60 million would be better spent on the environment of the classroom, such as supplies and aiding the teachers in their teaching of the students.
Thank you, Ed. Martha?
My issue with closing schools or adding on to schools is somewhat the same as what's already been said. I mean, there's a social issue and there's also, a business issue here. I don't think, I agree with Aaron, it's not the building. I mean, if it is necessary, if it's been deemed necessary to close a school or add on to a school, whatever it would take to promote quality education for the young people in this district is what we need to do. Now, I also agree that we need to involve not just people in the community, but those parents that will be affected by this. And I have seen, programs brought to different schools to attract new and different types of people. For instance, Roosevelt Magnet School had gone predominantly African American, and there was an alternative there to bring in a magnet, and it really worked. A magnet brought people and students back to the school, and it's very profitable now. And I think that we need to look at all the options, and of course closing a school would be one of them. It's not going to make or break whether that child gets a quality education. But I do think that parents don't know that they run the district themselves. The parents need to be involved, and if a caring parent can't be involved, then some caring adult needs to be involved with that child's education, and the building won't make a difference.
It has been reported that a number of our schools are on the state troubled list because of poor performance on test scores. What thoughts and/or recommendations do you have to improve this situation?